more, the pelvis will be slightly more rounded. For the men it will be little more narrow. That's it. But it's not hard and fast. There are even women with very square hips.
Shoulders are more narrow.
Could be, yes. Good. Yeah. And then if you, just for purpose of understanding, the skeleton can be classified or categorized into axial and appendicular skeleton. Axial means ऊपर से नीचे, straight line. From your skull to your neck to your chest bone to your your tailbone along the vertebral column. That is called your axial skeleton, straight line. Appendicular skeleton, your arms, your legs. So whatever arises from the side is called your appendage or your appendicular skeleton. So he has also mentioned what axial skeleton is: the skull in that small tabular column. Skull, thoracic girdle. Thoracic girdle is your rib cage, commonly called the rib cage. Yes. Vertebral column is your backbone. Okay. These are the three parts of your axial skeleton. Appendicular skeleton is your shoulder girdle. Whatever arises from the center is your appendicular skeleton. Shoulder girdle and pelvic girdle and lower limbs. So these form your appendicular skeleton. And another protection, important aspect is to protect your heart, your lungs. So that's a big function of your skeleton.
Here is mentioned ribs in axial skeleton.
Where?
27 page. Lie down.
Yes. Thoracic girdle. Page 27.
Column is
Left side.
skull, mandible.
Okay, so here he has said one thing and there he has said something else. Huh? So on page 24, he has said thoracic girdle as part of axial skeleton. Axial skeleton? Yes, correct, no? Ribs. Because ribs is part of your chest cavity, thoracic girdle. And one more thing, when you are in doubt, so it is directly attached to your backbone. Your rib cage at the back, we saw in the first chapter, the ribs are attached to your backbone, to your vertebral column. So it is at the center line only. So it will be axial skeleton only. There is no doubt about that. Understood? And when we talk about movement in skeleton, the skeletal system, we are talking mainly about the voluntary muscles. The voluntary muscles, if you see under the microscope, or even big muscles, if you see in front of your eyes, they have something called stripes or striations. The striations of the muscle fibers cause the contraction and the relaxation. So usually when we talk of movement in skeletal system, we talk about voluntary muscles. So voluntary muscles are attached to bones. It is often termed striated muscle. He is talking about another part of skeletal system, which is the skeletal muscle. It is often termed striated muscle because it has obvious stripes on it caused by the long muscle fibers of which it is composed. It is also called voluntary muscle. So striated muscle, voluntary muscle, both are the same. And their main function is contraction, relaxation, therefore movement. It is the only type of, why is it called voluntary? Because we can control the movement using our conscious control, using the mind. Then he says joint, a place where two or more bones meet. So skeletal system are made up of bones, muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments. Anything else? Cartilage, good.
What is fascia, Bruce?
We are coming to that. Fascia also is now the hot topic in yoga. Okay, so they have gone beyond muscle contraction, muscle relaxation. Now they are talking of terms in movement in terms of fascia. So what fascia is? Around each muscle fiber, muscle cell, each now voluntary muscle cell. This is a nerve cell. This is how one nerve cell looks. Single muscle, voluntary muscle cell will look something like this. It is called a spindle shape. This is the, okay, so this is the nucleus of the cell. So this is one single muscle cell or muscle fiber. Now around this you have like a sheath. That is called the fascia. Now this sheath is around every muscle cell and it is present around groups of muscle cells.
Okay, so they have it together, a group of muscles.
A single cell will have a covering and groups. Now muscles, they move in groups, they work in groups. Okay, so like for example your bicep and tricep. So when you are doing that Chaturanga Dandasana, when you do Chaturanga, which muscle is working very hard?
Just
Triceps.
Triceps, mainly the triceps. Chest also, side of chest, serratus anterior, that one is working. Huh? So when you are doing the Chaturanga, this one is elongating. You keep doing Chaturanga, that tricep, this is bicep, the one on top, the tricep is this. So to do that, you have to keep pulling that arm. So notice that this is elongating, this is contracting. So muscles, so this is the main muscle which is working and this is the antagonist muscle. Antagonist, okay? So muscles work like that. Okay, now around each group of muscles, now the whole tricep, around the whole tricep there will be a sheath covering, that is called a fascia. It acts as a small protection and it holds that whole muscle together, as well as the whole muscle will move as a group. It's like a, you can imagine it as a web. Now a web is so delicate but it is so strong. It is flexible and it protects. So these days in yoga, the cutting edge technology of yoga is about moving along the fascial lines. So that's what they're talking about. So this gives you a more holistic view of how muscles move when you perform yoga. That's all the fascia is for now you need to know. So it's like a web and this web will cover your muscle, single muscle cell as well as groups of muscle cells, and you have to think in broader terms. The fascia covers all organs also. It's like a whole kind of web around your inner body.
Is it like the thin covering
It's a very thin sheath.
over organs also? You see it on the camera when they
Yes,
do
yes.
any laparoscopic surgery.
I don't know if you, I think it is more at a, it's very thin, yeah, maybe at laparoscopic level you can see it. More like it would be even less, microscopic level probably. Yeah, it's a very thin web around all these muscles, organs, etc.
Okay, so that could be something. So,
And it enables an integrated movement of muscles. That is the main thing that you can keep in mind.
There is nothing specifically you can do for it, right?
There are the techniques, that's what the workshop is doing that. It's going to do fascial movement.
So we're saying that this yin yoga is exactly
To do with fascia. So yin yoga I am not familiar with. I have attended classes but I have not done the course on yin yoga. So but is it related to fascia?
yes. So I heard that it's more focused this like stretching, stretch and release, like deep
Yes.
stretching.
Yes.
And yin yoga is also like deep stretching, and we hold this position a long time. So we think that it's more focused on the fascia, nourish the fascia.
Okay, good point. So yin yoga nourishes the fascia.
Yes, yes. So this is point. This deep stretch is for this.
Wonderful, thanks for that. So, and this is now the hot topic in yoga, so fascia. Movements will be very subtle, but effects will be very good. Okay? Fascia is a web of tissue that serves to maintain structural integrity by providing support and protection while acting as a shock absorber. So it's lot of functions: movement, protection, structural integrity, gives a shape, and as well as a shock absorber, like a cushion. Bursa is a small fluid-filled sac that provides cushion between bones. So between bones you have a cushion, and also the cushion between tendons and muscles around a joint. So that is what bursa is. They are filled with synovial fluid. We will see what synovial fluid is when we talk about joint. Okay. Types of bones and cartilages. Bone is mainly made up of two things, organic and inorganic material. We saw that. Organic part is collagen, and then you have the inorganic part, which is mainly calcium and mineral salts. Now 5 types of bones are there. Okay. Types of bones based on shape, classified. 5 types are there, of which one most common that people know of is the long bone. Long bone's main function is movement because it is long. If something is short and stumpy, it cannot move, right? Something is long, it can move better. Now the structure of the long bone, this long part of the long bone is called the shaft. And the shaft is called the diaphysis. If you see the diagram, the long part of the shaft of the bone is called the diaphysis. And the 2 ends are called the epiphysis. Now can you see where he has marked growth plate? So when the haddi breaks, when the bone breaks, that's where the growth starts. That's called the growth plate. Epiphysis is covered by an articular cartilage. So now we come to cartilage. Cartilage covers the epiphysis of the bone, acts as a cushion to absorb shock and to prevent friction during joint movement. Now, see, you have this epiphysis which is attached to the bone, and on top of that you will have this joint which is filled with synovial fluid. Okay, so this is your bone, long bone. This is your epiphysis. This is epiphysis. Then you have this cartilage which acts as a cushion. Then on top of that you will have your joint capsule we call it. And this joint capsule is filled with a fluid called synovial fluid, which lubricates the joint. And then on top of that you will have the epiphysis of the other bone, which is also cushioned by that cartilage. So this is basically what is going on at the joint. Joint capsule. Then at the end of the bone you have this cushion. So much of protection and so much of lubrication is there when 2 bones meet at the ends of bones. Epiphyseal cartilage which attaches to the epiphyseal end of the long bone. Then on top of that you have a sandwich of the joint capsule we call it, and inside the joint you have a synovial fluid which is a lubricating fluid. Then on top of that you will have the the epiphyseal cartilage of the other long bone, and then you have the epiphysis and the other bone. So this is what happens when 2 bones meet. And then you notice in that diaphysis, in the shaft of the long bone, in the center is that bone marrow. That bone marrow is it is very meaty. It is very chewy. Okay, so dogs like to eat that. Yeah, you see, in the opposite house we have some neighbors who make biryani every Sunday or something. So they throw the bones on the road. Smarty goes and runs for the bones. She'll be chewing on it. Yeah. So it's like a big treat for her. Yeah. So.
Is it a fluid or is it a solid?
Bone marrow. It is more like, it's not solid, it is spongy.
Yes, it's
Spongy, meaty, and I have not eaten it. Wow, I don't know what, maybe it will be like,
because this
that beef jerky and all that they talk about. That beef jerky and all which you keep chewing on, it will be something like that.
Is it why people do get bone marrow cancer very often?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Because, why do you think bone marrow? Because there are always cells multiplying there. Wherever there is rapid multiplication of cells, it is liable to go out of control and become cancers. So that is how dynamic the bone is. Though it looks like a dead piece of wood.
So, is it more predominant that tall people then have more bone marrow cancer?
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Okay.
How does this,
Ah,
it generates the RBC and WBC?
yes, yes.
How does it go in the blood?
Hmm.
Nothing is
It is some parts of.
See, it acts as a storehouse. I know that much. It is like a storehouse.
I avoid that.
Yeah, you know that part, right? So
How it
from
goes
there, how
out,
it gets absorbed, it will be getting absorbed through the bloodstream only. I'm sure of that. How it
Some parts of the bone are porous, right?
porous, yeah. How does? Good question. So how does? What is that? Let's Google it.
RBC.
Hmm. How do RBCs go from bone marrow to bloodstream?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what he says. RBCs start as immature cells in bone marrow. After approximately 7 days they mature and they are released into the bloodstream, is what he says, in the bone marrow. From the bone marrow to the bloodstream. How do blood cells move from bone? Yes, good question. So he has answered. These new cells enter the bloodstream through holes in the small capillaries in the marrows.